Yeah, so are we winning? I asked the question because I don't have a definitive answer to it. So I'd love to hear what you guys think of that. Because I think it's definitely the case if you look at the sort of right quite broadly. I was kind of thinking about this in the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Is that there's no like one single voice at all. I think there's a lot more organic voices on the right than there are on the left at the moment. And I mean, if you look at someone like Yavin, he seems to, even though he was kind of the originator of a lot of this, in the terms that he sort of went back and resurrected some ideas that had been forgotten for a long time, some thinkers that had been forgotten for a long time. His influence is kind of, I mean, it's not minimal, but it's not huge. But yeah, when you look at someone the regime put forward to debate him, Alistair Campbell, a guy who was in government when I was back in school. So yeah, I think the left are just terminally out of ideas, out of new talent. I think it is fair to say that Trump has obviously thrown his lot in with the Zionist faction. I don't know if it was so obvious in the first term, but it has become pretty blatant in the second. I don't think that that means the next 3 years are a total write-off, because for those of us who ascribe to elite theory, generally most people would say, well, the currently operating elites with any kind of power are the Zionist faction, the techno-globalist faction. Basically, you can give Soros his own little bit there. He kind of operates by himself. And then also you've got the fledgling PayPal mafia or the tech bros, whatever you want to call that sort of up and coming elite. But those are the only people who are going to be able to have any real effect on politics. And we know that Soros and the Zionists don't get along. So I think perhaps the best we can hope for is that during during Trump's final term, he at least has a proper go at Soros and the Open Society. Because obviously he's filed RICO charges. Whether anything comes of that, we'll have to wait and see. And also, with now Antifa being designated a terrorist organization, that hopefully should be a real win for us, because that has been at least 10 years in the making. I mean, the legislation itself or the designation itself is not enough. We need to see actual raids, actual arrests, actual people going to jail time. But I think the main thing that we should be doing is looking at a way to create legislation that would allow people who, because one of the ways that Antifa get a lot of financial support from basically money that will come from the Open Society, is by when they are arrested, they get bailed out and they get defense lawyers paid for. And I think, yeah, some kind of legislation that would allow people, if they then go on to commit other crimes, the victims of those crimes should be allowed to sue the organization that helped get them out of prison and sue them into the ground. And we've really got to have a go at that whole NGO network. And I think this next 3 years is something we can do that in that time, particularly as the Israelis have kind of obviously discovered that woke is not in their interest, and now there is a power base that, I think that's a lot of what is behind that kind of the vibe shift, is that the Israelis and people who, or Zionist forces within or Zionists within America, have realized that it's not doing them any favors. But I think what we should be focused on, the proverbial we, is something that Dave Green said a little while back, the distributist, is the forming of a new, or the creation of a new aristocracy. And in order to do that, you need to build an institution. And that should be our major focus now, more than populist or democratic politics. Because in order to create a new aristocracy, you need basically A, families who have kids, that's up to you, and B, institutions where they can network. Much of the early British aristocracy would have sort of formed around Oxford and Cambridge. Because another thing that I think is important, once again said originally by the distributist, is the price of winning the popularity contest is that the worst people shout your slogans. And I think there is a lot of truth in that. And what we have seen a bit of over the last sort of, I don't know, last year or so, I guess, is a slow kind of seep of, like, you know, while I said there's no one person who entirely sort of comprises the movement, a slow seep of some of the original interesting voices on the right are starting to disassociate themselves. I mean, the interesting one at the moment is particularly AA, which, I mean, I'm a big fan of AA, but I'm not 100% convinced by some of the stuff he has been saying recently. Like, I can see where he's coming from. Like, I haven't watched the Stalin video. I can see where he's coming from, but I think that's kind of a case for another video. And I think another thing is we still lack, after 10 years, I mean, obviously there might be people out there, but I just don't know them, but really decent right-wing filmmakers, people who are telling stories, like, even if they're just little short films, little stuff like that kind of art. Because people get bored of podcasts and politics, they don't get bored of art. And I think that is somewhere we're still lacking getting our message across, especially when you consider, you know, the years and years of just permanent left-wing propaganda in movies. Like, I can remember I watched Fear and Loathing again a few weeks ago. I hadn't seen it for ages. And it's amazing how, like, yeah, you just see all those little subtle bits of what is essentially left-wing propaganda in the way the characters play out. And another thing I think that we're probably desperately lacking in is kind of elite social networks. I went on holiday to New York recently, and I was kind of trying to find places to go, but I was fascinated to see all, like, you know, places like Chez Margot, like, that are, you've got to pay, like, you know, $4,000 up front, and then it's a yearly membership fee just to be able to get through the door. And I'd imagine, even though they're very expensive, a lot of those circles would probably be left-wing dominated still. But we definitely need to start making networks like that of our own. And I guess those are the things that they don't require necessarily masses of views, but they require people with money and expertise. And that's probably more important right now than making podcasts like this. But I don't really have the money or expertise to set it all up by myself. I wish I did, but who knows if I can make enough money on the stock market. But yeah, what else have I got to say after 10 minutes? These are the sorts of videos that I'll be making from now on. I haven't really got many ideas for any proper videos, and I'm not sure many people would see them even if I did. But I still think that I'll carry on and say hello every now and then for the people that are still around, and obviously thank you very much to the people who are still around. And yeah, let me know in the comments. Are we winning? I'm not, I really don't know, but I'd love to hear what you have to think. But anyway, I'll see you later.